I am going to have to sacrifice something now, and maybe that's not going out and like always hanging out with my friends on a night out. It's accepting that there is some level of sacrifice and dedication to build something greater. It's almost like if you don't want ordinary results, don't do what ordinary people do.
What are you most self-conscious about yourself?
It's a tough one.
Imagine having to think that long about that question. If you ask me, jawline, soft chin, soft tits. But that, like, well, there's got to be. We're human, right? What's the thing that makes you second guess yourself?
Gee, I have to come back to it. And that's why I think the social media element's very interesting, because it started from just filming day in the life, like what I do in Bondi, from a challenge, and then that resonating like globally sort of made me think like how unique Bondi is as a place to live.
G'day me dogs, Michael Beveridge here and welcome to How to Get Good. Today we are joined by Alfie Robertson. He is a social media juggernaut. He has built an incredible health and fitness and lifestyle community online where he trains over 13,000 people. He talks the talk, right? He is involved in local programs. He's built out the coffee and chill community. It seems insane. You got to go check it out. Alfie's here to share his insights on building his incredible community, staying like laser disciplined and pushing the limits of what I reckon young blokes are capable of. G'day mate, how are you?
It's a flattering intro. I think good is subjective. So from my perspective, there's many areas to improve. But yeah, it depends where the benchmark's set.
Would there be a moment of reflection, like let's say when you hit, X amount of views or X amount of followers, that you give yourself that moment to be like, fuck, that's pretty good?
No, I think anyone who's like chasing something will know it's like the gratification of once you achieve it is never as much as you think it will be, and you're already on to the next thing. And that's what sort of keeps you in that cycle. And I guess from the outside, I can see how some would spin that as a negative, but it's a massive driver that you're just like always chasing the next thing.
No, I think that's fair.
Climbing the mountain at this point in time.
I think that's fair. I don't think, it's actually been a consistent theme that we've heard from our guests here that we're speaking to someone who, fitness was their goal and they wanted their first Men's Health cover. And when they got it, they were like, they didn't even think about it. They were sort of like, oh, I've gotten to the level where the next step is more important than the next step. So but surely there's got to be a moment of like dwelling on your success. Or do you reckon you're just still on the chase and that's fine too?
Not yet. I think if you're leveling up in the right way, you'll be surrounding yourself with people that are pushing you to go further and further. So like for me, for example, I live with my housemate, Jake, who's also my business partner. He just hit 900,000 followers. So like if you were to do like direct follower metrics, like not that it's about that and not that we do.
It's compare. Not about that.
Yeah, just to be clear, he should be here, not me. I'm getting good. But I think there's like always, it's just like, I guess, the thief of joy is comparison. Yeah. And I like completely get that reference, but I also think if you can use that comparison as like a massive motivator and you can start like leveling up and surrounding yourself with better and better people, it's like a better outcome in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be the kind of person who says your vibe, attracts your tribe or just like, you are the net worth of your, friendship group or whatever. But I think when people say comparison is the thief of joy, I think comparison is a driver, because if you're not competitive, like then what is it that drives you, I suppose? Like what is it that pushes you to do something beyond sitting on the couch?
100%. And we also don't derive like long-term satisfaction from things when we achieve them, because otherwise it'd be like the squirrel gets the nut and then it's just like consumed in that nut for its rest of time and then starves to death. Like the idea is it's like a short-term dopamine hit. It's like, wow, reward mechanism. I know that if I go hunt, I can go gather more nuts. And then you're like back on the chase again.
Brother, wouldn't be the first time a nuts fucking let me down.
Knew that was coming.
I know, so I was sitting there just going, can't wait to get a cum joke in here. Yeah. So Alfie, you mentioned earlier sort of like you're a Kiwi originally.
Yeah.
You lived in Singapore for a while.
I was working remote.
Back and forth
a lot.
And then you're now Bondi boy?
Bondi boy, yeah, straight in the bubble.
Nothing wrong with the bubble. I'm in the bubble as well.
It's very bubbly.
It's fucking insanely bubbly. Let me tell you, my dad came down and he's like, we're country Queenslanders, and he was sort of like, fuck, everyone's fit here. And I'm like, a rising tide lifts all boats. And it's like, you can't. Like, I was a piece of shit when I moved to the eastern suburbs. I still am, let that be known. But I'm working, like I have to like, I'm like, oh, got to get up and go to the gym, got to like eat a little bit healthy, like I think it's a really nice environment. This is so alienating to anyone watching. They're like, go fuck yourselves, guys. But I think like there's a reason that people in the health space move there, I suppose.
100%. Yeah, you are your environment. I think that rings like very, very true. And Bondi is a great example of that. But again, it's just like raising the bar of what's comparatively, a level of fitness. The average accountant is like ridiculously jacked.
Yeah.
And like running marathons. And I think it's easy to forget when you live in Bondi and that's all you see and all you hear about. But then you leave and it's like a bit of a different scenario for the rest of the world. And that's why I think the social media element's very interesting, because it started from just filming day in the life, like what I do in Bondi, from a challenge. And then that resonating like globally sort of made me think like how unique Bondi is as a place to live.
It's like a benchmark. Like there's Bondi, there'd be Malibu, there'd be New York, there'd be like of places that people from around the world can sort of look at as like, this feels like a benchmark for health and fitness. This place feels like a benchmark for fashion and cool. This place feels like a benchmark for like entertainment and culture. That was like London, New York, Sydney. Yeah. When you like, because you're still a young guy, right? In like, I'm 38.
25, yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're still like absolute sort of like in that dream scenario where you can make mistakes. What drives you and what drove you originally to leave the world of like tech and like startups, I suppose, and go all in on content?
Yeah, so it was I think like startup, you get a lot of exposure to like what's happening in the space, tech as well. I think there's always been like a big drive for social media. I'm the last generation that knows what it was like to not have social media. So we probably got introduced to Instagram when I was like 14, 15. So I feel like we've lived through it where like Instagram is very much ingrained in our life. We also knew this like small little window where it wasn't. Whereas for you, it's like later in your life, right? It's sort of come in.
MySpace at 18, bro. Like that was what I got. And
you see it, the way that different generations interact with it.
Oh, dude, millennials are fucking cringe as shit, dude. Like, and it's almost like it's performative, right? Because it's like, this is a thing that I have to do. Whereas it's sort of like ingrained, like they used to call millennials digital native because we grew up with it. Fucking absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like what are you, Gen Alpha? Gen Z?
I don't even know. Gen Z, I think.
Gen Z, like there is a realness to it that I don't think older generations have.
Yeah.
Because for us, it's a performance. For you, it's like, no, this is secondary. This is second screen. This is just life. It's really interesting. Like my experience watching how comfortable Gen Z is filming themselves and like engaging in content, because it's such an integral part of your life. Whereas millennials, we struggle. Like, does your dad struggle to take a picture of himself?
Yeah, the selfie on reverse. The selfie on reverse is nightmare.
And I'm just like, what is it? Because it's like, what, like, and it's just, I think it's really helpful and healthy, because I think the younger generation's relationship with themselves, their body image, and like their mental health, I think is so much stronger now. And all I can see the difference is. I think that there's a magnifying glass on it. So I think there's like a proclivity to be like, I have ADHD, I have like, and self-diagnose. But what I do see is a willingness to be vulnerable, or a willingness to, like, I guess, communicate what they're feeling. You know, my dad's a rugby league player from Central Queensland. Like, I don't think he's ever admitted any personal issue. Like, he'll call me, I'll be like, I just had a cancer cut out. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what are you okay? And he's like, yeah, it'll be fine. I'm in hospital for 2 weeks. I'm like, Jesus, like, I think the willingness to ask for help or willingness to be vulnerable, the younger generation, I think, is driving. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because you seem a little skeptical.
Yeah, I think whether they're driving it and it's like a time where we're now more open, more vulnerable, whether social media is the driver of that. I mean, yes, I guess more people are talking. I was chatting with my housemate who also creates content. He's just finished his final year of medicine, so he'll be a doctor. He's a medfluencer, which is what they call it.
I love them. Diagnosis in 60 seconds, go.
So funny.
Love that shit.
He was very apprehensive of starting. But I think, again, comparing himself and like living in a house where both Jake and I were creating content, we were doing a lot of exciting stuff, suddenly the benchmark of like what he should be doing at his age, suddenly being like a final year med student wasn't enough, which I think's a really interesting
insane
dynamic.
Dude. Like it's like, bro, you're in the 1%. Like, it's like no, but I'm surrounded by like
but it's also like, you ask any 18-year-old, would you rather 1 million subscribers or followers on any platform, or you could be like straight through med school, doctor. I know what that's like.
I know what that's like.
And it's a sad world in a way. I think.
Well, let's deconstruct that. Why that's sad, right? Because like, what's the end goal in life?
Well, okay, great question.
You know what I mean?
True. But I also think like we have to take into account we live in an incredibly fortunate society.
Massive.
Where like, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy, our like bottom needs are so fulfilled that we've now undervalued things like healthcare and education relative to entertainment, because entertainment's right at the top. So like we just place.
It's hard to commodify. It's easier to commodify entertainment than it is to commodify healthcare, which is ironic right now, but we'll play into that.
But I think it's more the idea of like we place so much value on entertainment now, and like you see some of these huge creators, Logan Paul, Mr. Beast, and like the captive audience they have amongst the youth, and you look at like US, they did some really good comparison of like you ask US kids what they want to be when they grow up, and it's creators.
Yeah, 20 years ago there was no such thing as an influencer.
I want to be like Mr. Beast. Yeah, I want to be like Logan Paul, and then you go to like mainland China and like see what they want to be, and it's sort of, but again it comes back,
it's happening over there though. It is absolutely happening over there.
100% is, but it's being like restricted and controlled. Looking in Australia, we put in some laws around it.
The long-term investment in health, let's say I do a pinger and 13 schooners. Let me tell you how quickly the reward comes. In about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Getting up early, going for morning runs, eating clean, ice bath, like HIIT workout, meditate. The benefit of that takes a while. I mean, you probably argue like with an ice bath, it comes like, 20 minutes after. But the dopamine kick on like party versus the dopamine kick on like a healthy lifestyle, it's hard. I can imagine it's hard to leave that behind. And I reckon a lot of people listening will be like, man, bro, I want that. I want this, but like, have you ever done a bag? You know what I mean? Like they'll just be like, how can I get away from this?
But I think it's less dopamine driven. Like it is obviously a huge component, but I think it's more like it comes back to your environment. If you're hanging around the same people all the time that are doing the bags, that are doing the pingers, like inevitably that's what you're going to be doing. And I think there's a really lonely chapter for everyone who, if you are in one of those groups and you feel like it's impossible to get out, there is going to be a chapter of your life where you step away from that, and your friends that recognize you as the guy that comes out, does bags, does pingers, drinks all the schooners.
That is been pretty quick.
Which is happens, and they'll go, yeah, there's just less in common with those people. Obviously, you stick through with like your true friends who you see out of that. Not all of your friends are just drinking friends.
I think it's like, I call it like the sobriety colander.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you sift it out and the good bits stay like on the top. And 100%. So I've been sober 2.5 years now, and I used to be a fucking, like, I think I've got a fucking big Melbourne bitter thing. I used to keg, dude. Like I would keg fucking hard. Yeah. And it actually, what I found was like, it almost like got me down, it boiled it down to a jus. Everything that was left was really nutrient dense and rich, and all the people that would only hang out with me for partying were gone within 6 months. You know what I mean? I stopped getting calls being like, hey man, can you tee up back? Like shit like that.
Yeah.
My question, I suppose, is what can someone do 2 steps, 3 steps, if they're in that position and they're like, fuck, I feel like what's the thing that they have to do to be the circuit breaker? Is it move suburbs? Is it like...
No, I don't think it's as drastic as that. I think setting yourself a challenge. So I did the 75-day hard challenge.
Yeah, right.
Which is why it's Alfie Gets Hard. That's like the full circle piece.
Could work well if we go down an erectile dysfunction angle as well. But
exactly.
We'll save that for 40 years.
I was ready for grand. I was prepared. I think with that piece, like having a challenge that you set yourself, I found it far easier once I was probably about halfway, because it's like, oh, I'm day 40 of like this challenge, and people are like, oh, fair enough. Like the conversation of, oh, come on, like just have a drink, it's just this weekend, sort of goes if you've committed for something for at least like some stackable period of time. So I think like definitely having a challenge or something that's, you're also like adhering to a higher set of principles, which is always quite good if you're trying to get people on side with you. So like given it's 75...
a rule book of some description, like there's arbitrary like guidelines.
Yeah, so 75-day hard is like a challenge. Like I didn't make it up; it was part of.
Oh yeah, I see.
You see,
a lot of my friends do it. Right? Yeah.
So like at least when you do that, there's like heuristic straight away. You know it's like a challenge. You know that one of the components is not drinking, but there's also other components. I think if you said I'm doing a 75 sobriety challenge, people would. It's a lot weaker because you can just poke holes in the one thing.
Sober October is pretty easy, right? Because it's like October, sober. I actually think Sober October, and I'll say this.
I thought it was Dry July.
Dry July, there's sober. Yeah. There's a fucking heaps of them. But I think that they do worse for the drinking culture than anything.
Because it's stockpiles. You got 30 days
to catch motherfucker, build up that resistance and then go.
Yeah. There's tolerance down the drain, ready to rip.
I think
4 beers, you're gone.
And what you get is people being like, I could quit. Yeah. They're like, I could do it. I don't have a problem. I'm like, bro, like...
it's like a self-validation of like, oh, no, I'm just seeing that I can pull away from it. It's like, really, you pulled away from 4 weekends of drinking.
It's like the hard part isn't
break
quitting.
it down.
Like everybody knows, the hard part isn't quitting. The hard part is staying stopped.
staying.
Like that's the infinitely harder thing.
But I think also like my view on alcohol, though, I haven't drinking in a while. It's just, and like still don't drink and go out, is more like, the way I view it is like, you're stealing happiness from tomorrow. And there are times in your life where stealing happiness from tomorrow is worth it. You know, wedding, big occasion, and like the happiness and joy. Because drinking, at the end of the day, like release a lot of dopamine. You're out of your normal circuit. Like there are a lot of fun elements.
It creates like the ability to hang out with a different version of you, which sometimes is interesting.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time it's rooted in, you say the line, stealing happiness from tomorrow, right? And I think for someone who is at peace up here and possibly at peace down here, that makes sense because you value the you tomorrow.
Yeah.
When you don't love yourself, it's really hard to be like, why the fuck do I care about tomorrow me? I hate me. Like today me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think, and this is like my general thing, I think healthy diet and exercise will fix 80% of what ails people generally.
100%.
And I'm not a doctor or anything, so no one like if you have real issues, deal with that shit. What the fuck you listening to this for? But like I found as a guy who was like got to 90 kilos, had a B cup titty, progressively was starting to hate the person I saw in the mirror, started getting erectile dysfunction. Like I was a customer here before I started working here, right? I just remember I did F45. I did a 8-week challenge and I committed to it 100%. Every issue I had with 2 months of eating clean and 2 months of working out twice a day, I felt infinitely better. I lost all my, like, it's just demented to me. So I can understand why there is such a strong community and focus. No, it just gets such a strong community that you've managed to harbour and foster. And the Bondi Ice and Coffee, what's it, Bondi Ice and Chill?
Coffee and Chill.
Coffee and Chill. When I saw those videos, bro, I'm not going to lie, I was fucking terrified. How did you find so many hot people to put in one space, right? And like, I'm sitting there looking at, this is the peak. This is, and I can only imagine like what those people drive themselves to do. I just think it's what you've managed to foster through healthy eating, healthy lifestyle has turned into like a healthy business, I guess, for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Coffee and Chill's been interesting.
Bro, I've seen the memes. We've all seen the memes.
Yeah, it has been.
And it comes from a place of hate, right?
Oh, 100%.
Like, and jealousy, and I get it. And Newtown and Bondi will always argue.
I think so. I think like I can understand from the outside the bubble. It is like putting on a pedestal all of the stereotypical things of Bondi. But in the same realm, it's like we actually, so we went over in LA in April and met the founders, Blake and George.
It would feel so normal in LA. That feels so like a normal thing in LA, which I think would be pretty cool for you to go over there and be like, fuck, this is my people.
It is, but the thing I'd say it differs like Bondi from LA is LA, it's like, loads of good looking people, jacked, all of those things, but they are movie stars, influencers, in TV, whatever it is. Whereas here, same thing.
They're in accounting,
but
and
it's
finance
accounting, finance. Like there is actually, these people are balancing normal jobs and working 9 to 5.
Which I think is way more aspirational to me. I'm
100%.
like, bro, if you can maintain this and like hit quarterly earnings, fuck yeah, bro, that's insane.
Yeah, exactly. And I think having that, like Bondi is very unique where you have the sort of financial hub of like a Southern Hemisphere bar some of the Asian cities. But like definitely for Australia and New Zealand, like such a financial hub like Sydney, put next to this like amazing lifestyle like Bondi Beach or any of the beaches in Sydney are like amazing. And I think it is a bit of a balance of like people come here for the lifestyle kick, but also there's like an amazing opportunity to work.
Bro, I used to fucking hate the eastern suburbs and I moved here and I went to Icebergs the first time. I was like, oh, I get it. Fuck, this place actually slaps. So
yeah, and 100% like get it from the outside.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
It's like, it's in-group, out-group stuff, like classic 101.
Yeah. Now, when you travel outside the bubble, like how do you find the culture of men in like different areas? I think that's interesting because I think Bondi male culture is like really positive and strong and like community. I think there is still an element of jealousy there because I think that's sometimes good. How do you find it when you go to Melbourne? How do you find it when you go to Brisbane? I think Gold Coast is almost like the Aldi version of Sydney sometimes.
Gold Coast, yeah, it's got elements of it.
I mean, like bikies
Burley.
and meth, but like there are some areas that are a little like, I'm like, I can see what you're trying to do here.
Yeah.
A little like budget Bondi, I'll fuck with it.
I think the litmus test for me is more going back to New Zealand, where I'm from. And that's like New Zealand, I just see as like a country town of Australia in many ways.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it's just like tall poppy syndrome, all those things. Like, it's still not cool to try. All of those, like, 101
That's why everyone good in New Zealand leaves.
leads. Yeah. And it's a shame because New Zealand exports all of its great talent to places like Sydney, places like London.
And then when they get good, they're like, "You're ours," and I'm like, "Cunt, we're all mean to you." Like Lord was like, "You guys hated me. I had to move to fucking LA for a while."
Yeah, and I think there will hopefully be like a returning. I feel like there's enough Kiwis out there that are like still looking at New Zealand and be like, "This is a beautiful place to call home," and was an amazing place to grow up. And like I've always said, I'd love to go back there and raise a family and replicate some of the childhood I had because it was just beautiful country. It's so safe.
Isn't that an interesting one about the kids, right? Because like I grew up in the country and I think I've grown up pretty well, and I want to replicate that. But I don't want to go out and live in the country queen. And so it's sort of like, I want to give my kids the lifestyle I had.
Yeah.
But my life has changed so much. It's like, I don't know if I can have the life I have now and live out there.
Yeah, it's a...
So it's an interesting one. I suppose you're in a great position because like you're in control of your destiny in terms of like the stuff that you do. What have you found to be, and I'm not going to use the word lucrative in terms of money. Let's broadly talk about like things being lucrative. What's been the most lucrative angle of like your content career?
So, like, well, not unsurprisingly, but I had no intention to sell anything when I started. And then I got so many requests when I saw the content. Basically from like September to December, I went to 100,000 really quickly in about 3 months. And it was like getting so many requests on...
Was that a surprise or did you know?
That was pretty surprising.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it was like posting, it's like a very slow traction, and then anyone who's posted content consistently will know sometimes you just get one video that just rockets, and it's like a flood of dopamine and all that stuff.
The algorithm gives, the algorithm takes.
Exactly. Yeah, and then you're stuck, and then you're in it.
I'll just do 64 versions of that one video, and you see creators get stuck on that. It's like, bro, 100%. You've just hamstrung yourself now.
Yeah.
And so I suppose it's good that you've got that like ability to step back and be like, stay the course. We'll have more hits, we'll have more misses, but like overall, if we're creating like something that feels
authentic.
Yeah, authentic to you.
To who you are. Yeah, I think it's been pretty crazy. So since starting, with both Jake and I, we have like some joint elements, but across both of us, we've trained about 13,500 people, which is a lot.
And they're all paying?
Yeah.
Fuck me sideways, bro. That's so sick.
Yeah. So, I guess
men or women?
Men. So our audience, which is hilarious, like our audience is like 90% male, which you just would not probably guess from the outside in. Marley, though, housemate who's in medicine, his is like 60% female. So there's an interesting lay of the land there.
Oh, I remember having a look at some, because I used to manage run an influencer company, and I would like look at like even Abby Chatfield, right? Like it'll be like early days for her, she's like 85% men.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it's just sort of like, but she's doing women's content. What's Anna Paul? You know Anna Paul, the OnlyFans shit? Mostly female followers.
Wow.
Demented.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, it's just impossible to know.
Surely the OnlyFans conversion is a little bit different.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
So interesting.
It's so interesting. She's like the hero for women because of like authenticity, which is really all that matters. One thing that I think is interesting is if you had to tell, let's say, think about you at a fork in the road, diet or exercise, if you had to pick one.
Diet. 100%.
Yeah?
So it just moves the needle so much more. I think like base exercise is really important. Like resistance training has its role, particularly for like bone density as you age. But like if you're just like walking, getting a bit of movement and you're eating really clean, you're going to see way better results, but you're going to feel just way better as well. If
you're sitting next to a guy at the pub and his head's in his hand, not the pub, but a cafe or whatever, and his head's in his hand, he's like, I can't fucking shift these kilos. I got these saddlebags. I got these... I feel like I'm doing everything right. If you could say 3 tips in terms of diet for him, and they have to be absolutes, not suggestions, fucking absolutes, what would they be?
Track your food for a week.
What does that mean?
So track like...
Journal every single thing you eat?
Just plug it into something.
MyFitnessPal or whatever?
Yeah, MyFitnessPal. There's some AI calorie identifying apps. They're not super accurate yet. They get you about 85% of the way, but then you can plug and play into them. Actually, yeah, longer story, but doing some work with one at the moment.
That's cool.
Like try and make it better.
Okay.
There's basically like been a massive surge. Clearly some image recognition technology came out. Where now...
It's like the checkouts at Coles. They know exactly what's there.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. So you can take a photo. I'll show you after this. You can take a photo, and it will identify everything on your plate. So like if you had chicken breasts on your plate, it will know, but it won't always get it 100% accurate of the volume. So the volume metrics is really hard to work with. So I'm working with a couple of developers in San Fran to build out like this sort of proposition.
That's very cool. That's cool. I like that.
So
track food.
Track your food, and like I'm definitely not a big proponent of tracking your calories all the time. I think it's super tedious, which is why I'm so interested in this app. But I think plugging in and just getting a base understanding, you'll find that like you eat very similar things week on week.
Yep.
So if you can just plug your food in for a week, like you will think that you're doing everything right, but there's probably something in there that's throwing your calories way off. Like you're not gonna defy thermodynamics if your calories are like in a deficit.
Yeah.
You'll lose weight at the end of the day. So that'd be the first one. Would be track
your food. Track your food.
Yeah, track your food. I think drinking more water. Generally, like the whole population of Earth is incredibly dehydrated. We just don't drink enough water.
Does soda water count?
Yeah, soda water's fine.
I'm fucking chugging it, bro.
Yeah, that's good. I think like carbonated water is like not as good to quench your thirst. But having water, having some like electrolyte or like sodium in there, potassium mix, so just like a bit of salt is fine. Literally at the bare minimum.
Okay, talk me
Helps
through
with
that.
hydration.
Teaspoon of salt in your Nalgene bottle?
Yeah, just in the morning. Yeah.
Is anyone you guys have fucking salt in your water?
Yeah,
Do
a
you
little
do
bit
that?
of salt.
In the morning, yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck's up?
Helps with hydration.
Yeah,
Salt water?
Yeah, salt water. Salty water. That's what like actually restores your electrolytes. I feel like this is a groundbreaking news.
What the fuck? Okay.
There are like full electrolyte companies. I don't think you have to go that far.
Well, is that what electrolytes are? Just salts?
Yeah, it's like sodium and potassium, a mix of it.
Fitness.
There you go.
Fuck.
So once you've done those two,
Track
the
your food.
last one, if you wanted to try intermittent fasting, I wouldn't do it. Like there is some benefits not really linked with like cleansing your whole gut and doing all those pieces. I think just a 16-8 eating window, which means 16 hours of fasting, and then you've got an 8-hour eating window. For example, if you fasted until midday, you've got until 8 p.m. to eat. It just restricts the window in which you eat. One, there's sort of some like...
Give me a time. Give me a time, and I'm going to do it for the next week. Give me a time to eat and not to eat.
Well, do you like eating in the... When do you typically
I don't eat in the morning.
Okay, so then just do 12 to 8. If you wanted to restrict it more, do like an 18-6, which would be 12 to 6.
12 to 6?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that for next week.
Yeah, it's just reducing the window.
Opportunity for damage.
Yeah, it just stops you like snacking and
Just
like
co-
doing
just-
all
just
those
like
things.
Black coffee in the morning count?
That's fine.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Huberman's impact on the health of young men in Australia?
I think the health of young men globally.
Yeah.
Just had such a huge impact. I think he's shed a light. It's more for me, actually, I think he's shed a light on a lot of stuff that we already knew. I love the Alex Hormozi quote, we don't need to be taught, we need to be reminded. I think Huberman, being this like neuroscientist out of Stanford, is like the perfect person to remind us. And like none of the stuff he says is that groundbreaking. It's like 15 minutes sunlight.
Don't use your phone before bed.
Yeah.
It's almost like there is like an authority behind what, because for so often we're hearing people who's like, I'm a PT, or, I'm a naturopath, or I'm an ex-football player. It's like, I'm a neuroscientist from Stanford. I'm like, objectively, I'm listening to you, bro.
100%.
And he's back, like he used to be a skateboarder, like he's got tattoos, jacked as shit, cool beard.
Yeah.
His personality is what I would call the definition of neutral. You know what I mean? He's not making outrageous jokes. He's sort of like, he's not Lex Friedman or whatever. He's got something. He's just so easy to listen to.
Yeah, 100%. So I think like someone like that is the perfect face of like, a great person to remind us on the stuff that we inherently already know, but we still need to be told.
Do you think we were talking about, I guess, anyone, let's say, a guy who was 35 20 years ago and a guy, he got zapped and he's here today, and he was to look at the state of men in Australia, he would be like, there's a big shift, the shift towards like health and like holistic well-being. What do you think's caused that?
Level of aspiration and ability to compare yourself to everyone in the world, which is both a positive and negative,
I think
depending how comparison plays on the individual.
And again, it's like what you feel in here is going to shape how that comes, right? And I think for women, I think it's been a negative. I think for men, it's been a positive. And I think that comes around legislation around transparency in plastic surgery and in things like editing, photo editing, I suppose. And we have this aspiration happening from some young girl sitting in, orange, and she's looking at a person that's had a BBL, has had tummy contouring, and has had lip line, and she's like, oh, buy my skinny tee and you will achieve this. Like that level of aspiration, that's the dirty side. And then you obviously have, hey, I'm doing a boot camp, free to join, everyone, 30 days, blah, blah, blah. And then you have all, have how many people you got training? 13,000?
Yeah.
Like you have 13,000 people like being the best version of themselves. And they wouldn't have known that had they not found you, I suppose.
But I think in the same vein, if we're going to go down like the BBL track, like the amount of guys that use steroids and promote their programs and like are so obviously on steroids, it's ridiculous. Like the body standard, I did an interesting post.
I agree, actually. I should have mentioned that. That is fair. That is fair.
The body standard has been raised dramatically across both parties, regardless of gender. I think what's more interesting is like maybe, I don't know if it's biologically, but I feel like men are more willing for and driven by competition. There seems to be, when greater competition is introduced, a better outcome as a whole shifts the whole pack up.
Yeah.
Whereas whether
rising tide lifts all boats, I think I've said that 12 times in the last month. Like I think,
and that's what social media, the positive frame of it does, whether it sets unrealistic standards and that someone who's, even like the working and not working thing, like someone whose job it is to stay fit is now the benchmark compared to someone who's like trying to make a living as well. And they both feel like they're competing in the same world. It's like the playing fields aren't as level, but I think if everyone like sees aspiration as a positive thing, it means that they like work towards something greater. But
depends what the end
it's the same vein,
as well.
because like you can also look at that and be like, wow, that's incredibly demotivating because I'm never going to get there. And that's like self-limiting belief. So it's your base, right?
I remember when I went, my first gym that I went to was Titan Fitness, right, in Coogee. And my PT, because I don't know shit about gyms. If you ever see me at a gym, I'm not going to know what I'm doing. Please help me. But like I was like, ugh. And she was really great. And she was like, I was like, fuck, that dude's jacked, dude. I'm like, how hard would it be to me to get that? And the first thing she said was, how many people here do you think are on steroids? And coming from like a non-gym background, I was like, there was maybe 100 people in the gym. I was like, maybe 1 or 2. And she's like, 1 in 4 here, easily. And I was like, what the
Which
fuck?
Is fucking outrageous.
And she's like, if you see someone with mass and no fat, unless they're a professional like bodybuilder or personal trainer, like you can't achieve that without. And that was like, that transparency was just so important to me because I would work for 6 months and there was just nothing really showing. And I'm like, how the fuck is this 19-year-old? And like, I just didn't know, right? Like I wasn't aware that the absolute psychopathic acne on his back was indicative of steroid. Like because my chosen expertise wasn't fitness, wasn't in gyms. I wanted to get healthy. And so I think, I wish there was a better way. I mean, it's impossible in a perfect world for me. It's like every PT with over 100,000 followers has to do a blood test. And
I'm up for it.
Yeah. But also, I really like it when you see these like fitness dudes being like, I take steroids. Because I think some people are like, steroids isn't like, you don't take steroids and then just go off and you get big. Like, you still have to work.
You still have to work. But it is a catch-22 because if they are unhealthy. Like, if they're meant to be like the aspirational level of health, and like, I agree, transparency, way better. Like, I would rather someone who is taking steroids openly admits it. But in the same vein, it's like, if you now have a platform and you're like, I take steroids, I think younger and younger people are now looking at it and being like, oh, well, if they're taking steroids and they survived. Because at least there's an element. Yeah.
Talk to him when he's 40.
Exactly.
And he's in a sauna, dead in fucking Thailand.
Yeah.
Like, remember Ziz?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
But that, and like, it comes back to that, like, are we just building a culture that like the benchmark is higher and higher and higher, and it's so
and it's an inaccessible bench. It's like, we're all 5'3", we're trying to get up on this fucking big boys bench, and it's like, bro, be comfortable just with what do you think makes a healthy man? The 3 things that make a healthy man.
Being comfortable in your own skin. I think that's probably the biggest one for me.
I think it actually covers everything.
Everything stems from there, and that's like being comfortable. It doesn't mean that you're like satisfied, you're not going to put in work to improve yourself. It doesn't mean you've achieved the level of like 100%.
No.
It's just being comfortable where you are, accepting that it's a journey. Everyone's on that journey. No one's perfect.
What are you most self-conscious about yourself?
It's a tough one.
Fuck, imagine having to think that long about that question. If you ask me, jawline, soft chin, soft tits. But that, like, well, there's got to be. We're human, right? What's the thing that makes you second guess yourself?
Gee, I have to come back to it. But I think it's that. It's like being very comfortable in your own skin. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like one specific thing. I think a level of...
Hold on, stand up. How tall are you? Fuck, he's tall. So maybe let's go back 6 years. And what were you self-conscious about then? What was something that sort of like, didn't keep you up at night, but just like, had you second guessing?
Trajectory and like where I was heading. So I think like there's a level of insecurity that drives like I'm not where I need to be, and that's like the urgency.
That's a good.
And, like,
I think
stress.
that's healthy. That's healthy, right?
Yeah,
like aspiration at that level. Has there ever been something physically that you? Or
I think a long time ago, yeah. Like I started going to the gym when I was 14, and I think I was driven around rugby. Played a lot of rugby when I was younger, but it was also
outside flanker.
Yeah.
Open side?
Yeah. Oh, well done. That's a good guess. But it also was driven from, like being the fat kid, and then like really hated that, and just started getting into the gym, and then like fell in love with the gym. Like I was never like severely bullied to a point where it was like, I need to sort this out. But it was enough to make me realize like, I want to go to the gym to like,
at 14 though, 14 is like generally you're only in the gym at 14 if you are sports related or you have been hit by the, I'm not going to say like the Liver King Andrew Tate bug, but like you are in that that weird men's rights bubble as a kid, because I just think 14-year-old boys should be.
Well, I think we're a big rugby school in New Zealand, and it was like if you were in the first day and you were the thing, as most like
I did the same thing. Yeah, I was at boarding school at Marist in Brisbane, and like you wear that jersey until you're 58. You know what I mean? If you got that first one, you ride that shit to the bone, bro.
Exactly. So I think getting into that and then getting the gym, but then it was just like the love of realizing that delayed gratification, which is sort of what we go back to, of that like delayed dopamine release of you do the work now and you get the results later.
Did the money get the treats, bro?
Yeah, exactly. And then that tiptoed into when I went to boarding school. I wanted to come to Sydney, and I knew the only way I was going to get there is if I worked really hard and got an academic scholarship to USyd.
Right. So I thought you meant high school. I was like, bro, that is a different beast trying to get a high school scholarship.
No,
that's great.
This was to go to Sydney.
USyd, right, okay.
So I just really put my head down my last year and ended up doing really well, which like I was the rugby guy, I was the sort of like rugby guy, I don't know, cool sports guy who'd built the body, not an academic by any means.
You always had that with the sneaky rugby boys. Always good at math. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you sneaky rugby boys and be like, oh, they got like an ATAR of like 97. You're like, the fuck, Dana? He's a hooker. What the fuck? He's a dumb cunt. What the hell? And they're like, no, it's actually incredibly good at physics and chemistry.
I think that was just it just built that sort of you can work and sacrifice something in the short term for something longer. And that was pretty positive. And I feel like I've just kept doing that now. So like drinking for me and not going out, it's half the drinking of like what that impacts beyond the next day and the day after that. It's also accepting that like I am going to have to sacrifice something now, and maybe that's not going out and like always hanging out with my friends on a night out. It's accepting that there is some level of sacrifice and dedication to build something greater. It's almost like if you don't want ordinary results, don't do what ordinary people do.
Alfie Robertson, mate, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You definitely are good, and hopefully we can just achieve a little bit better together.